Hello and welcome back to my solo basic D&D dungeon dive. Just a little recap from last session. We found a dungeon when a caravan was attacked by orcs and the caravan guards gave chase. Some of them fell through the roof of an old abandoned dungeon, catacombs, whatever we want to call it. We haven't figured that part out yet. And when they got back to town, they reported what they found, and we are not the first adventurers to find our way in here. We managed to come in and explore a couple of things. We got attacked by a much more powerful group of adventurers in this little octagon room right here. We managed to get away, but our thief didn't make it. So the cleric and the elf were able to escape. And we found a locked metal door that we were not able to pick. We ran into another group of adventurers in this room down here, where we were able to, thankfully, recruit them into our party. And now we are getting set up to be able to go and see what other kind of trouble we can get into. I've just got to get all of my notes put together, because why would I have anything ready in time? Like, that's just silly right there. But it's okay. There we go, with our elf and our cleric, our reaction table right there. One day I'll get my stuff together. Unfortunately for all of us, today is not that day, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Alright, there is our... Stop that. Here is our what everything looks like. There's our connecting. We don't need starting rooms anymore. There's our rooms and our corridors. So, let's get down to business. And I do believe we've gone into this room right here, and we're getting ready to head, well, on evens we go north, on odds we go south. That's an odd, so we're getting ready to head south. Oh. I don't remember, and I didn't look at what the old torch die was, so we're just going to put it at a 3. So there's our torch die and dungeon encounter. We're still doing new wandering monster checks every even turn. I'm just trying to pull up the OSE, excuse me. Try to pull up the OSE generator for treasure by dungeon level, so that when we run into treasures, we'll know what we're finding. And we had gone to the south. Hello! So, we're heading south through whatever this may be, so let's find out what it is. That is a 10. Okay. On a 10, that's just a dead end. Well, that's unfortunate. So, unfortunately, to the south, it's just a dead... Well, let's find out what kind of connector it is that leads into a dead end. For that, we're going to need a D8. I promise, one day I'll have everything together. A 6. Okay. That's a T intersection that just kind of dead ends in every direction. Okay, but that brings us to another even on our timeline, and that means wandering monsters. Oh, that's a 1. Okay, so we've got a wandering monster, but let's find out what it is. So on evens, we're going to roll I've got two different Wandering Monster charts. Sorry, it's two different Wandering Monster charts, so we're going to go with evens and odds. That is an odds, so what are we going to fight? A 5. Alright. In this little T intersection down here that dead ends off, we run into 2d6 goblins. 4. Okay, that's not too bad. Like, I've certainly seen worse fights in this dungeon. So we've got 4 goblins. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to check for surprise for them. They're surprised. Surprise for us. We are not surprised. Okay. Normally, we would check for reaction, but we have a dwarf in our party. Dwarves don't like goblins, and goblins don't like dwarves. And we've got 4, and they've got 4. And it's pretty even numbers, so I think we're gonna take this fight. So we're gonna go with Goblin 1, and 2, 3, and 4. So they're just kind of hanging out in the little T intersection at the back of the room. And we've got our party. We've got our cleric and our elf, our dwarf, and our thief. So we got surprised, so that means we win the initiative. Oh, hold on. There we go. Get these up here where y'all can kind of see what's going on with them. So the goblins are just kind of hanging out in the middle of this little T intersection that we run into. We've got our dwarf in front with our cleric and our elf in the middle and the thief pulling up the rear. Our cleric is holding our torch. And our elf... What kind of cool spells does our elf have? You know, you'd think I would have wrote those down somewhere. Oh, I did. I did. They're right there. Very smart. Okay. So, we're going to have our dwarf charge in, and our elf has a spear, so they're going to hang back just a little bit and stab at stuff. No, our dwarf has a short bow. The dwarf is going to stay back and shoot. The elf is going to move up and block with a spear. The cleric is going to come up and we're going to form a little shield wall and block the corridor so they can't get past, and our dwarf is going to be able to shoot through. And the thief is going to stay in the back and watch for our rear. That sounds reasonable enough. You know, I have a thing with all the attack. There it is. Alright. So, we move in, and then comes the missile fire. We're not in melee, so he can fire in between us. So our dwarf has a short bow, and the goblins are in leather armor. So our dwarf with a 5 is just going to miss, but our dwarf is level 3, so he's going to shoot again with a 6, and that's going to miss as well. And one last time. Oh, that's going to hit. Okay, so an 11 hits, and a short bow does a d6 for 5 points of damage, and this goblin has 1d8 minus 1 hit points. 4, this goblin just straight up dies. They have no idea what's going on. Our elf and cleric kind of lean up with their shields, and the dwarf just fires an arrow right straight in between them. That goblin goes down. These goblins freak out, so they're going to roll their morale. That is a 2, so they're going to stick around and fight. They stand up, they get ready, they grab their clubs, and the fight is well and truly joined. So, we're going to roll for initiative. Let's see, where's a good spot? Right over here. Oh, they win. Okay. So they get a 5 and we get a 4. The goblins are going to charge into melee with us, and the one in the back is going to start slinging rocks at our dwarf. So we're going to see how that works out. So first we move, then we missile fire, and it's in melee. So on a 1, it's going to go through, give me a second. On evens, it's going to go through and hit the dwarf that they're targeting. On odds, we're going to roll a d4 to see who it hits over here. That's an even, so it goes through and hits the dwarf. And our friend the dwarf is in banded mail. So they're firing a sling against banded. They need a 10 or better to hit. They got an 8, so not so much. Now their 2 melee attackers are going to swing their clubs, 1 against our cleric and 2 against our elf. And our cleric is in leather with a shield, and they have clubs, so they need an 8 to hit. That's a 7. It just misses, bounces off the club. And our elf is in brigandine with a shield, so they need a 9 to hit. Ooh, that's 10. That's gonna connect. So let's see how bad this is for our elf. They get a d6 on the... Nope. Clubs are a d4. Nope, this one's a d6. Oh, that's nasty. A full 6 points. Well, luckily our elf has 8 hit points, so he's not completely dead. Thank goodness for decent con scores. But the elf is down to 6. We're still up, and they're still up. Okay. So, we are going to have our elf, and we've joined into melee, so our dwarf isn't going to shoot. But our elf and our dwarf, our cleric and our elf are in melee, so they are going to try and attack the goblins. The cleric has a mace, and the goblins are in leather. So a mace against leather needs an 8. That's a 9. All right. Maces are a d6 weapon. That's 2 points of damage, and our cleric has no bonuses from strength. Our cleric has a penalty to strength. Okay, so 1 point less damage. So he only does 1 to the goblin. But the goblin has a d8 minus 1. Oh well, that's enough. That goblin gets killed. Alright. So that's half their numbers, so they're going to have to make their morale check again. Oh! Hi, Talia. Thank you for following. I didn't realize that was you. Yeah, we're doing some solo D&D. Yeah. Words. Solo, basic Dungeons and Dragons dungeon crawl. Yeah. Words. I know how to use them. So that goblin died. Now our elf is going to try and attack this one. The elf, she has a spear, and that gives her 7s or better. That is an 8, so that'll hit. A spear is also a d6 weapon. So that does 1 point of damage. They don't have any penalties. Oh, they get a bonus to their strength. So they're doing 2 points of damage against the goblin's d8 minus 1. That's 1 point, so this goblin also dies. That forces morale at the end of the round. So the goblins get a 7, and their morale is on a piece of paper somewhere. This one. Their morale is 7. So that last goblin is going to stick around and fight to the death. Makes sense. Alright. So, initiative. We win. Alright. There is no melee. So our elf and our cleric are going to hold the line right here. Our dwarf is going to fire his 3 shots into this goblin right here. Short bow against leather is 7. So, that's 6. That's 3. And that's 10. That'll hit. A short bow does 2 points of damage against a d8 minus 1. That is 3 points. That goblin is still standing and is going to charge the cleric. Alright, cool. So that goblin charges the cleric because the dice say that they do. And, you know, who am I to argue with the oracle? The cleric is in leather with a shield against a club. That's an 8. That's a 3. The goblin misses. Okay. So, they are still in it to win it. Oh, and we win the initiative. So they've closed into melee. Our dwarf isn't going to fire through our elf and our cleric because that's bad times that way. So we are just going to have our elf and our cleric do a little bit of stabbing and bashing. Cleric's going to go first with a mace against leather is an 8. That is enough to hit. For 3, that's 2. That's just enough, and the last goblin dies. Okay. So, we took a hit. It wasn't super great, but we're okay. Everything's fine. We lived. And our goblins have some kind of treasure on them. I know that they do. But that is going to burn our torch down to 1. Because after the fight, we take a short 10-minute rest, catch our breath, recover, take a drink. I don't know what you're drinking, but drink something, even if it's just water. Come on, website, load up. Anyway, while we're waiting to figure out what kind of treasure the goblins have, we're going to roll for the contents of the room. 5. You know, I probably should have checked to see if there were a monster in here before we got this far. But it's okay. We're already here. And we're going to make it. It's going to be okay. That's my wandering monster table over there. I think my tablet is broken. So I got to turn the Wi-Fi off and back on. Wi-Fi networks. Okay, we've connected. Alright. There's the inventory over there. One of these pages has my... Did I lose it? Surely not. Oh, there it is. I was looking right at it. Okay. We don't need the bottom half of this. Okay. A 5 is treasure. Okay, that's good. So that's 1 treasure. And a 6 is the monster. Alright, let's see what else is in this room. A 2, so that's the even chart. And a 6 on the evens chart is... right here. That's a piercer. How many piercers are there? We have enough party members that there's 2d6 of them. Oh no. Oh no. That is a lot. There are 11 piercers in this room. So piercers are 2 to 3 foot long stalactites. Yeah, stalactites that hang off of the roof of the room that we're in. And they will try to surprise our party and then drop down on top of them. So, we are surprised on a 1 and 5. Well, that's a 4, so that's not super great. What is their reaction? A 4. Okay. Possible attack, roll again. Alright. A 6. A 6 is attack. Okay. Alright then. Well, there are 11, so that's going to be 3 on each of them. And they are attacking with spears. No. 4 on the cleric. Well, let's find out. Which one... Who among us is lucky enough to only be attacked 3 times? The thief. Alright. The cleric. The elf. The dwarf. And the thief. As we are just bumbling around, trying to figure out what's going on. We see the treasure. And as we approach the treasure, the sky falls. So piercers are... they are spears. Request timeout. Oh no. Load the website. Come on. We'll turn Wi-Fi off for a second. Okay, so against the cleric in leather and a shield, they have spears, so they need 8. Oof, that's 1 hit on the cleric. That's a miss. That's 2 hits on the cleric. Okay. So we're going to have to deal with 2 hits on the cleric. On the elf in brigandine with a shield is 7s. Oh, 1 more. That's 3 hits on the cleric. Okay. We might end up dead right here. Okay, the elf is in brigandine with a shield with a spear that is 7s. That's a hit. That's a hit. That's a hit. And that's a miss. Okay. The dwarf is in banded. Okay. Spear needs 7 to hit banded. That's 1. 2. 3. 4 hits on the dwarf. Alright. And now for our thief. They are in leather. Spears need a 7. That's 1. That's a miss. And that's a miss. Okay. Okay. So the thief might live. We'll find out. Spears are a D6 weapon. So, our poor cleric takes a hit, gets knocked unconscious, save versus death to see if they live. They live, take another hit, save versus death to see if they live. They live. So our cleric is unconscious and alive. Excuse me. Our elf has 2 hit points. Takes a hit and gets knocked unconscious. Save versus death. They live. They get hit again. 12. They might not make it. 12. That is just enough to save versus death. The 3rd hit. That kills our elf. Sorry, girl. Okay. Now our dwarf has a fair bit more hit points. No, they don't. They only have 6. And they've got 4 attacks incoming. Okay. Okay. The first hit knocks our dwarf unconscious. They save versus death on an 8. They're good. Our next hit kills the dwarf. Sorry, friend. And lastly, our thief has 8 hit points. 1 hit. 3 points. So our thief is still up. Our dwarf and our elf go down. Our thief sees this, takes a look around, realizes, oh man, things have gone horribly. And on a 1, 2, or 3, they are going to try and grab our cleric and run. On a 4, 5, or 6, they're just going to leave. A 4. So, our thief bolts, running back to the exit, and they died. Well, that's why it really pays to take other people into the dungeon with you. So now we know that there are 11 piercers and some treasure in this. No internet. Oh, because I turned it off. Okay. There are 11 piercers and some treasure in this little T-shaped intersection over here. And we've got 1 thief that's going to make it back to town and be like, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm through. Whatever adventuring is not for me. I don't care for it. But that's okay. Because even though that group died, there's still this group of adventurers over here that we get to find out what's going on with. Because they did kind of mercilessly beat up our first group. And that's okay. Because, I mean, you know, you run into people in the dungeon. There's no way to know if they're friendly or not. And not everyone's going to take that risk. Okay, so now, moving over to Team B, we've got a different elf, a magic user, a cleric, a dwarf, and a cleric. So we've got a very cleric-heavy party. Fair enough. So they are in this room right here. And we're going to roll a D... Yeah. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Let's find out which direction they go in. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. They're going to go this way. And a 5 makes it something. There you go. A 5 is a passage. Okay. Oh. Whole new party, whole new torch. Their torch is on 4. So we're going to roll for a wandering monster in this room before we do anything else. That's a monster. That's evens. That's 4. They may be just as dead.
I gotta bring the chickies in. It's getting cold out.
Okay. So moving over to this group, they get attacked by an onkeg as it burrows up through the soft sandy soil. Alright. So we're going to roll for a surprise for the party. On a 5. They're not surprised by the onkeg. It doesn't have to roll for surprise because it's ambushing them. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. As they were sitting around talking, trying to figure out what to do next after they had to deal with the group that barged in on them. This giant acid-spewing ant, termite, cockroach thing bursts up through the soft dirt of the soil and attacks number 1. That is a first level cleric. Okay. So our first level cleric is in a set of brigandine, and that's okay. But our Ankeg is going to come up with a bite, and that bite we are going to say is a battle axe. That sounds nice. So they need a 6 to hit. So here's our Ankeg right there. And they need a 6 to hit. Ooh, 12. Okay. Well, that's not good at all for our little cleric. If I'm not mistaken, the Ankeg does... Yep, here we go. So, his first bite is on the cleric. Doing 2d6 points of damage for 4 against the cleric's 3 hit points. And the cleric goes unconscious and dies. Okay. The party, seeing this, is going to understandably freak out. But that's okay. They're going to stay. They're going to try and beat it up. Like, we can't let the cleric's death be in vain. It's okay. So, they're dead. Time to roll initiative.
Hello?
What, darling? Yes, you have chickens.
Hey, baby chicken.
We win the initiative. We're going to attack the Ankeg. Okay. So our cleric is dead. Our magic user only has Charm Person and Ventriloquism, so those aren't going to do much. They're just going to, like, back away from the Ankeg. Yep. They're going to back away from the Ankeg. 3 is our elf, who has protection from evil and a polearm, so they're going to poke the Ankeg from a distance. Alright. Our dwarf has a sword, so he's going to run up and stab the Ankeg. Our cleric has a mace, so they're going to close in. And our other cleric has a sling, so they're going to come over here. They're still firing into melee, but they're not firing through melee. So on a 1 through 4, they're going to hit their target. On a 5 or a 6, they're going to risk hitting either the cleric or the... Yeah, cleric or the dwarf. Okay. Fair enough. So first we move, then we missile. So the sling is up against the Ankeg's banded plus shield. There we are. A sling needs an 11 to hit, so a 9 will not. Okay. Our elf has a polearm. Banded plus shield needs an 8. Ooh, a 5 will just miss. Okay. And the dwarf has a sword, so banded plus shield is a 10. Ooh, that's a 4. Okay. But our dwarf is level 2, so they get a second attack, and it misses. Alright. The Ankeg is going to turn around, and on a 1 or a 2, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, is going to put 1 bite into the elf with his battle axe against the elf in leather. A 10 very much hits for 2d6 points of damage. That is 8 as it bites the elf in half, and then uses its other attack on evens and odds.
Mocha-doo! Come on, Noodle!
On our other cleric. Our cleric is in chain and shield, so they need a 7 to hit.
Come on, Noodle.
That is an 8
Lily, move.
for 6 points of damage.
Come on, Mocha.
Oh, the elf's death save.
Come on.
Nope, elf is dead. Okay. Did I say 6 points of damage? We'll go with 6. So they didn't hit the Ankeg at all. They've already lost 2 party members. Things aren't looking super great for this team either. So we're going to have... This group is going to roll for their morale. They need 7s or lower. That is a 10. They're going to break and run. Okay. But we have to roll for initiative. The Ankeg wins. Alright. So on evens, the Ankeg is going to attack this one. And on odds, no. It's a 4 and a 5. We're going to go with what we've got. So that's both against our cleric. Alright. So it is going to bite our cleric with a 7. Battle axe against chain and shield. It needs a 7. Okay, and the second attack is a 5. The damage on that is 3 points. Okay. So it bites the cleric. It does significant damage to them. And they are able to break and run. So they leave, head back into this room in a blind panic. Or no, they were in this room. In a blind panic, they run the only way they can into the room that is trapped with a deadfall. So we're going to roll for number 2. On a 1 and 6, they trigger the trap. They are fine. 4 is fine. 5 got a 3. So they're good. And 6 got a 6. So this party is able to run through here into this room. They avoid the deadfall trap. But, unfortunately, because it's a whole other party, we have to deal with the poison darts trap. So our elf is dead. Our level 1 cleric is dead. That leaves us with our magic user, dwarf, cleric, and cleric. Okay, let me just X out some. This cleric is dead. This dwarf is dead. That elf is dead. This thief is dead. And that leaves us with the 4 that we have. Okay, so we're going to go with our cleric is now 1. Our magic user is 2. The dwarf is 3, and our cleric is 4. Okay. So, does the cleric trigger it? No. Does the magic user? No. Does the dwarf? No. Does the cleric? No. Okay. Because no one's triggered this trap in this group, they don't know the trap is there. They are going to decide that discretion is the better part of valor, and they are also going to leave. So that gets us out of the dungeon, and now I have to go and print up 3 more character sheets, and we're going to roll up a new party to dive back into the dungeon. There's a lot of dead bodies, so there's a lot of loot laying around. But give me just 1 second. I just got to go print up some character sheets, and we'll get right back into this. Okay. Sorry that took so long. I wasn't expecting to have to do that in the middle of everything. And then, of course, I went and accidentally printed a character sheet on my wife's labels for the soap that she makes because I didn't catch it in time, and I should have checked first. But that's okay. So, we are going to roll up some new characters real quick. We'll go about equipping them next time, but I want to go ahead and get the characters made, pick their classes, and do their hit points real quick. So we are going to start with 3d6 down the line, and I can switch any one score around, or if they're just terrible rolls, we can invert them, because we do want this to be a fun game. So, that's 11 for strength, 10 for intelligence, 9 for wisdom, 15 for dexterity. That's not a bad thief so far. 7 for constitution. That's not super great. But a 13 for charisma. Okay, we could do worse. And 110 gold. Okay. And then we've got a 7 for strength. And a 10 for intelligence. That is a 9 for wisdom. That's good. Okay. And that gives us another 15 for dexterity. And that gives us 13 for con. Oof, but only a 6 for charisma. And 100 gold. That is going to be 13 for strength. Oof. A 6 for intelligence. An 11 for wisdom. Ooh, only a 6 for dexterity. An 11 for con. A 9 for charisma. And 120 gold. Okay, so not super great for the stats, but let's see what we can do here. So I've got 2 different 15s. I'm not so worried about the 7 in con. We can have this one be our rogue or our thief, and that'll be okay. I've got a 15 in dexterity that I could switch that for my strength. That would give me a 7 dexterity, which would make me easier to hit. But that would give me a decent fighter, or I could just keep... No, I think what we're going to do is switch the 15 for the 10 in intelligence. And we're going to have this one be a magic user. And then this wouldn't be the worst cleric ever. And so we're going to take our little group right here, and next time we'll go through getting their equipment and we'll try to get them some followers and henchmen to go into the dungeon with them. We started off the first dive with only the 3 characters, and luckily we were able to get some friends, but that dive did not go well. But that's okay, because dungeon diving is very dangerous work. But anyway, thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. Take care, stay safe, have fun. That button.